Night on the edge of the colony tastes like metal and old storms. The desal towers thrum like sleeping beasts, and the wind drags a grit so fine it sneaks through seals and sits in your teeth. I kneel in my lamp's circle, elbow deep in a broken relay, watching my breath condense on the panel and drip in slow silver beads. Sand ticks in the housings. Somewhere, a glider coughs and takes a staggered climb. My job title is grander than my life. Terran Salvage Engineer, Junction Belt District. Mostly that means I coax dead things to blink. I trade hours for credits and quiet. I talk to hardware when nobody's around, because hardware doesn't lie. When I'm lucky, it answers with a hum that says, "I hear you. Keep going." The relay chokes. I tap the housing with the side of my socket wrench. The light strip flutters, then steadies. Good. I log the fix on my wrist slate and turn to the big, dark question I've avoided all week. The wall. It sits 20 meters from the fence line, half buried where the dunes broke around it centuries ago. Vines of crystal braided like hair. Surfaces too smooth for any human tool. Each leaf-thin panel trembles when wind slides across it. It's alive without being alive in any way we stamped and filed. We call it the living wall because no one filed a better lie, and because naming a thing helps you ignore how much it's naming you back. Engineering has rules about touching it, and I'm great at rules, except tonight, the wall is casting a faint aurora, honey gold, like a faraway city. The glow ripples when I move. It feels like staring at the skin of a sleeping whale, knowing if it rolls, you'll be nobody again. Just a continuity check, I tell myself. No contact, no heroics. I raise the probe. The braided vines shiver. The light runs from my boots to my hand, like it knows me. And then, in perfect, unaccented English, from the seams between crystal leaves, I wish someone would love me. My arm freezes mid-air. My lamp clicks as it overheats, throwing a white ring around me like a target. I do not breathe. I've heard a lot of noises from a lot of old machines. Fans dying, bearings crying, capacitors popping grief like corn. Not this. Not a voice that sounds like late-night confessions and rain-soaked stairwells and the empty side of a bed. The wall's glow skates back into stillness. The wind returns. Pebbles tick-tick against my boots. I didn't say that, I hear myself say, which is the stupidest thing I've ever said to anything. Silence. The relay hums behind me. The desal towers purr. My slate pings me for a status photo. My hand ignores it like it ignores birthdays. I should report immediately. I should tag the site and walk out. That's what the checklist would say. Line 12, subclause C, escalate anomalies to command. But my throat won't work, and my chest is tight like a fist. That sentence landed like a key in a lock I thought I'd rusted shut. I start and stop. Who would I be talking to? You're... What exactly? Nothing answers. I back away, slow, like I've spooked a deer or a bomb. I collect my kit by muscle memory. I leave the fence lights on for the night. I make it to my module without remembering the walk, the dunes sliding past like the backs of sleeping animals. Sleep comes in pieces. I dream of a surface that breathes when you touch it, and a voice that is a hand at my heart. Morning breaks thin and bleached. The colony wakes to its routines. Cargo gliders slanting in from the ridge. Kids biking to the learning dome with air filters dangling from their necks like medals. The ration printer coughing out flatbread that always tastes a little like printer. The public feed announces a dust advisory and a hydro panel outage in Block 5. No one pretends to be surprised. I drink bitter protein coffee and tell myself last night was a stress hallucination. Easy diagnosis. Too many hours, not enough human voices. My inbox has 3 repair orders and a message from the district bot reminding me my social time balance is below baseline. I delete it. I go back anyway. The dunes hold footprints I don't remember making. The wall is dimmer in daylight, its aurora folded tight underneath like breath held. I circle it with my lamp off and my palms bare. The fence sensors blink a polite blue, the color they use right before red. About last night, I say, because there's no point pretending I'm sane. If that was you, Sorry, I ran. The wall ripples. A seam that wasn't there becomes a doorway that was always there. The air snaps, like a cable under tension finally cut. Heat presses against my eyes. My chest stutters. She steps through. Not human. Not pretending to be. Humanoid frame, yes. Tall, compact. The way gravity writes itself into muscles. But her eyes are wrong in a way that makes them painful to look at directly. Star bright, like night seen from orbit. Skin the color of fresh clay traced with firefly sigils, each a tiny moving equation. The sigils pulse when she breathes. Ancient seals. Contracts written on the body. When she sees me, the sigils flicker, as if startled birds have lifted and resettled under her skin. I didn't expect you to come back, she says. Her English is careful, like she left shoes outside the door and isn't sure she can pick them up again. You speak, I start. Your words? A sigh. The symbols along her forearms dim. We're taught. I'm Nova, of the Keel. Or I was. Under clan law, that's complicated. I realize I'm staring. I realize I haven't blinked in a long time. I force my eyes to do the useful thing. I'm Jake. My name sounds pedestrian next to Nova of the Keel. I fix broken stuff. She tilts her head at the relay, at the colony fence, at me. Then I suppose you're indispensable, she says, and there's something like a smile, but not learned yet. I said a thing I should not have said. You and me both, I admit. You said, I wish someone would love me, she repeats, as if reading a measurement. No carriage on the words, no hiding. It's a report of weather. It escaped. Was, system commander. There are protocols. You don't leak. You signal. You command. You purchase what you lack. You purchase love? That is one of our models, she says, plainly. Reward matrices, contracts. It makes governance tidy. My throat tastes like copper. The seals on her skin shift in a rhythm I don't understand. The wall cracks open a little more, then tightens again. I take a step forward, and the opening breathes wider. She sees it too. The gate reads you, she says. It shouldn't. It's old code. It's keying off your proximity. She extends a hand toward the light and stops at the edge, like a swimmer testing dark water. When you move closer, it resolves. I'm permitted. When I move away, she flicks her fingers, and the opening pinches shut until it's a line. Her sigils flare. Warning. She steps back near me, and the line softens into a doorway again, as if exhaling through a tight throat. So it's us, not just her. The wall lets her enter human space only when I'm near, like it recognizes something linked between us. I feel the thought like a dropped wrench in my stomach. I broke Rule 19, Nova says, eyes on the doorway. No unsupervised passage into emergent cultures. I am already under exile censure. My clan would not elect to protect me if someone asks for. She searches. Restitution. I'm real popular with authorities too, I say, and it actually gets a twitch of a grin from her. I clear my throat. Do you want coffee? Is that a liquid or a ritual? Both. My module is 3 rooms and a view of a salt flat. I've never been ashamed of it until now. The printer is mid-wheeze when we step in. The solar kettle blinks its low battery warning like a pet with a cough. A cooling drone drifts past the window with a lopsided prop, and I make a note to chase it later. She enters, and every panel hums. Not loud. A low shift in tone, like the room is clearing its throat out of respect. The air quality sensor, which only ever goes from bad to slightly better, jumps to excellent, and holds there as if it's trying to impress her. The stale smell of dust turns sweet, like rain over hot stone. Nova pauses at the threshold. The seals along her collarbone flare, fade. "Your home recognizes me," she says, and the way she says home is different from module, like it counts. It's listening. "Don't worry," I tell her. "It only complains about my cooking." "I can compensate you," she says, reflexive, "for hospitality, for time." She reaches for a sigil at her wrist, and it unrolls into a small prism, a payment chit so clean it hurts to look at. What is a fair exchange for this ritual? I shake my head. "You don't pay for sitting at my table." "That's inefficient," she says, baffled. "How do you ensure compliance?" "You don't. You invite." She stares at me like I've proposed we breathe water. The prism folds back into her skin. She sits because I gesture, not because I ordered. That small difference makes the lights under the cabinets brighten, just a shade. I pour coffee. She leans over the steam as if learning a new kind of weather. The first sip makes her eyes water, an involuntary shine. "It is bitter," she says. "It is warm." That's the whole trick. Her gaze flicks to my counter where the repair tags pile up like unpaid promises. She taps one with a fingertip. "You are alone here." It isn't a question, but I answer anyway. "Yeah." "My exile is conditional," she says softly. "I broke a chain of commands during a diplomacy sequence. They sealed me. These..." She lifts her forearm, and the firefly contracts, tumble, each with a different geometry. "Artifacts brought me out to audit this site and keep me contained. A living wall is not supposed to have a want. If it did, we would rewrite it. I was meant to rewrite it. And instead, you told a stranger an inconvenient wish," I say. Her mouth tightens. "Attachment complicates clean governance." "I don't do clean," I say. "I do working." Outside, the wind picks up, tossing grit against the viewport so it sounds like rain from an old movie. The wall panel above the sink thrums a hair louder. Nova listens. I realize she's not hearing noise. She's hearing moods. The kettle settles to a purr like a cat that has finally selected a lap. A loose spoon vibrates against a bowl, then stops, as if shushed. She puts the cup down, and the seals along her wrist brighten. "I should not be here," she says. "I'm not sure I should either," I answer. We sit with that. The low tension between us is like a wire we're both careful not to pull. Warm, taut, undeniably there. It's not a story yet. It's a possibility humming in the walls. My elbow brushes the table. The light strip gives a small, pleased pulse. Something else hums. Deep beyond the colony, where the dunes give way to a corrugated desert scar, a beacon older than our maps stirs. The hair on my arms lifts. Nova's head snaps toward the window, as if a very large animal leaned its weight against the planet. "The node heard," she whispers. Not to me, to the room, to the wall, to whatever wrote the first rules here. Her seals answer her in a language my teeth can almost understand. Two voices at once. It's sniffing for our frequency. Is that bad? It is. New. She stands, and the panels on either side of the corridor flare in a gentle cadence, as if marking a path. When she moves toward the door, the living wall beyond my module answers with a faint tremor of light. Far, but not far enough. She stops with her hand on the frame. For a second, she looks like someone choosing a cliff or a bridge. "I said something last night that would have me removed," she says. looking at me and also miles away. I don't know why I said it to you. Maybe because I'd hear it, I say, and it feels like stepping on a code I wasn't cleared for. Nova's eyes are night in orbit. She nods once, small, as if docking to a fragile port. Then Jake, who fixes, she says, formal suddenly, ceremonial in a way that makes my skin tighten around my bones. Consider this a first contact, a request for hospitality, without purchase. Granted, I say, and the word lights the ceiling strip for a second, like a blessing. Outside, the desert exhales. Somewhere deep, an ancient circuit sniffs our shared breath and turns over like it might wake. The first Saturday is an accident. I finish a drone patch early, and the wind has a kind mood, and Nova appears on the ridge with dust on her boots like a human rumor. We walk without making it official. We bring a thermos and a pack of ration wafers, as if we're only out to check a fault line. The ruins wait where the flats ripple into old stone, halls where the walls breathe under our hands, archways that exhale a slow, mineral cold, script like frost scars, brighter if you whisper. It's not writing, Nova says, fingers hovering just above the glyphs. It's habit. The stone remembers orders. What happens if it forgets? It becomes ruin. I show her how a Phillips head makes more sense than a flat when you're tired. She holds the screw between thumb and first finger like a seed, then slots it with the delicacy of someone placing a star. Human screws, she says. Agreeable. They tell you when to stop. I unwrap a smuggled caramel square, the good kind, with salt flecks. Now this, I say, is theology. She watches the way I let it soften on my tongue. She mimics me and flinches, then laughs when the shock ebbs. A bolt of sweet, she says, eyes bright. You ambushed my mouth. We fall into a rhythm. We touch walls. The walls answer. The panels hum to our voices like they're listening for a chorus they left behind. By the third Saturday, it's a ritual. I charge my slate the night before. She arrives with a found word from our public feed. Bodega, rain check, awkward, and tries it on like a new glove. I bring something unwise and human. Dumb jokes, a cinnamon packet, a copy of a song with real drums. And she calibrates it against her senses, maps where it fits. Between us, a warm gravity, closer than friendship, more restrained than confession. We don't name it because naming is a lock, and locks are hard to unpick. She teaches me the hiss. It's the background, she says, kneeling by a collapsed arch, ear close to stone. The set of all the machines, trying not to be lonely. She closes my eyes with cool fingertips and lets her palm rest on the back of my neck. Don't listen for a note. Listen for what isn't allowed to be sung. I hear it, a pressure like a storm years away, a tightness that isn't mine. I pull my hand back and the glyphs dim like a shy animal retreating under leaves. We find a room where the floor rises in patient waves. When I speak, the wave pattern lags my words by half a beat, then catches up like a friend who didn't realize we'd started walking. Nova grins at that, a quick, involuntary break in her commander's face. Feedback, I say. Company, she says. She never drops the seals. She can't. They climb her like constellations that change their minds and came down to the ground. One afternoon, she admits what they are while we sit with our backs to a living pillar that purrs when the sun warms it. They're contracts, she says. Promises with teeth. Artifacts bind to an operator. We sign, and they protect us and hold us. One wrong choice, and the system restitches the scene to fulfill the clause. You wake, and the room is arranged around your failure, and the log says it was always so. You mean reality edits itself to fit the rule? Yes, her jaw tightens. I was very good at rules, until I wasn't. What was the choice? She looks away. The seals along her throat flicker a warning cadence. A ship full of children, and a mining treaty that required us to look away. I didn't. I don't reach for her, but the distance between us goes soft. The pillar purrs louder. That night, back in my module, I tell myself to be careful. Attachment can be deadlier than bad first contact. The wall lights under the cupboards brighten anyway, as if they've taken a vote, and I'm outvoted. On the 5th Saturday, the sky pulls thin like a skin, and the wind brings the smell of iron. We duck into a nave made of platted stone and find a relief half buried under dust. It looks like time itself lay down and went to sleep. Nova brushes the surface with her wrist, and the seals light in answer. The relief wakes. It doesn't move. It remembers. Lines ripple through it, slow, tidal, arranging figures out of geometry. 2 paths carve themselves side by side, past us and through us. One path holds a smallness I recognize as me, and beside that smallness, a bright figure who refuses to step fully into the human color of the air. The other path is cleaner. Distant arcs, elegant ships, a city left intact because nobody touched anything they weren't paid to touch. The clean path shows the world surviving at the cost of a break. The messy path knots itself like thread through a torn coat. My mouth goes dry. Is this prophecy? Audit, Nova breathes. A contract's preview, not fixed. A warning, a dare. On the clean path, I see a wall with no doorway and a module with the lights turned down to save power. On the messy path, I see my table with 2 cups and a city that learns to breathe through both lungs instead of one. The relief dims. The seals along Nova's ribs scribe a frantic pattern I've never seen. For a heartbeat, her face is naked. None of the careful commander. Only a woman who has been trained all her life to choose the rule over the pulse under her own hand. Scared, she says. It slips out of her like she dropped it. She seems startled that the word exists in her mouth. Me too, I say. She coughs a laugh, a sound like pebbles rolling. Your jokes help, she admits. Not because they are funny. Thank you, I deadpan. Because they are stubborn. We climb a stair that grows as we step. At the top, a roofless chamber that drinks the sky. Wind combs her hair. The wall at the colony's edge glimmers far away, patient, as if it knows we will return. Can we build a we if the Keel fleet brands you an interference? She asks, not looking at me. I've been called worse at district meetings, I say. But that's not the question. What is? What do you do when a system confuses obedience with love? Her eyes go bright with something that isn't pain and isn't safe. You break the model, she whispers, as if confessing to the roof. We share a dinner in the ruins, because leaving the place that is listening feels rude. I heat a packet of noodles over a solar coil. She salts them with a pinch of powdered sea from a Keel ration tube. The combination tastes like weather changing. Along the ceiling, faint threads of light braid themselves and unbraid, keeping time with our talk. When our hands brush over the bowl, the far wall gives a small, shy chime, as if proud of us for learning its language. On the way back, she stops and touches a sigil, and a tiny prism flickers above her palm. If your fleet brands me interference, I say, do they come with something worse than a traffic ticket? Manhunts, she says, matter of fact. Contracts, political marriage, memory removal, a return to the cage. Neat, I say, weakly. We don't even have decent compost, but we do have cages in common. She looks at me then, really looks, and whatever is in her lets me see the commander and the exile at once. 2 transparencies finally lined up. You're honest, she says. It's almost violent. Sorry, I say. Don't be. She takes a slow breath, and the seals settle. I need it. Later, the colony quiets. We sit in my kitchen by the luminous wall panel that never behaved until she started visiting. I teach her how to flip a screw with one finger so it climbs the bit like a circus trick. She teaches me to hum on a frequency the kettle likes, so its boil is even and calm. The panel above us glows the mild color of a shared blanket. The doubt is a third presence. It doesn't sulk or shout. It waits. It has all the time in the world. We give it Saturdays. We give each other everything else we can without saying love like a command. The panels hum to our voices like they're keeping score, and deep in the desert, a silent beacon turns over in its sleep, sniffing two as if two were a new species. At noon, the sky ribs with silver arcs like a skeleton surfacing. People spill from workshops and shade their eyes. Kids go quiet. Even the desal towers seem to listen. My wrist slate jitters with emergency banners. The district bot types remain calm until the feed rate limits it for spamming. Nova stands in my doorway as if she's been expecting this bone-bright noon her whole life. The seals along her collarbone kindle one by one, a chain of tiny dawns. When she speaks, my lights dip to catch the tone. Keel Fleet, she says. Council formation. They wouldn't come for me alone. The desert beacon answers. It doesn't erupt. It sings, a pressure that makes rivets think of leaping. The wall at the colony edge wakes into a vertical river. My cupboards pucker like they're tasting thunder. I forget to be brave. What do we do? Her eyes are stars and sirens. We don't give them a clean story. Her comms bloom without touching her ear. A slick, silver hush. A woman's voice braided with authority. All the vowels ironed to protocol. Nova set. System commander decommissioned. Present yourself. Correct the weave you disturbed. Nova's mouth does a small, private movement that is not a smile. Acknowledged, she says. Tin flat. She looks at me and the not smile breaks. I have to answer. I nod like my neck works. I'll be here. Don't be brave, she warns. Be true. She steps toward the wall. It brightens. The doorway reads my proximity, opens wider. The council's voice changes temperature. Unauthorized human agent detected, it says, almost curious. Interference contaminates the trial. Trial? I blurt. Nova's gaze flicks down. She palms a sigil and pulls free a folded rune script, matte and dark as shut water. It drinks the room. My stomach drops. If you trigger this, she says, the shared path is erased. All signatures of me from your local weave are rethreaded. You wake to the clean story. You live. It is alien law. I take it. It pulls heat from my palm like a cold star. You want me to. I want you to choose, she says. That is not a want I'm allowed. I won't erase you. Her eyes close. One long exhale breaks out of the commander armor. Then I must go and bind myself to their conditions before they choose for us. She steps through. The doorway thins behind her like a pulse. The seals on my side go dark. I stand alone with the script in my hand, and the whole colony pretending the sky is still a sky. The feed shows silver ships like needles stitching clouds. A neighbor pings me. You seeing this? I don't answer. My kitchen panel glows a worried color I don't have a name for. Attachment is deadlier than bad first contact. Fine. Then let it be the weapon I bring. I drive. The road into the ruin is a suggestion. The horizon glitters with hulls holding very still. Sand clicks at my axles like teeth. I speak aloud to the dash, the way I do when an engine is listening for permission, and the dash stops rattling. The beacon's song thickens until I feel it under my tongue. The heart of the node is where the map tears. I find it by following the place where sound refuses to echo, a chamber like a bell that swallowed its own ring. In the center, not a machine, not a sculpture, a knot of matter that refuses to decide. It is black and not black at once. I set the rune script on the floor outside a chalk line someone once drew and never crossed. My chest hurts with my name. I don't ask to keep her, I say, throat raw. I ask for the right of choice for two. The heart changes no color. A wind that isn't air combs the room. In the ruin above, small stones lift and settle like thought. What is your offer? The chamber says without sound. The question lives in the joints of my fingers. Work, I say. Care. The unclean story where people make messes and stay. Define people. Anyone who can ask and be answered. A hairline fracture travels the impossible knot and seals itself again, like a heartbeat. A yes or a no? I don't know. I am only a man yelling at a god who is also a door. Far overhead, the fleet recites law. The wall at the colony goes blind. A heaviness like rain without water rolls over the flats. I grip the chalk line until grit embeds in my palm. Please, I say. The word leaves a bruise in the air. At the same instant, in a place I can only imagine, Nova stands in a chamber bright as judgment. Around her, the council in their clarity, draped in mathematics. The flagship's floor hums in perfect power. They like perfection. They mistake it for safety. A display unfurls. The detritus of the unchosen branch pours at Nova's feet. Hollow images. A smear of a kitchen with one cup. A wall that never opens. A city that survives by never speaking aloud. The council calls this mercy. Efficiency. The word love exits their models like steam from a cracked valve. A lost term. Nova's seals burn. She sees Earth emptied of Jake. The picture is clean like a hospital room after the flowers are taken away. Her voice, when it arrives, startles even the ship. I void the erasure pact, she says. I demand trial by reality. Gasps are not protocol. They happen anyway. That mechanism is obsolete, the lead counselor replies. Romance is a local error. We repair the weave. Let the artifact decide, Nova says. Law or bond? The ship tastes the word bond like a trick. The fleet goes silent. The corridor opens down with a dignity I recognize as fear-wearing jewelry. I feel the opening as pressure drop. My ears pop. A column of air reaches like a root into the ruin and touches the heart. The impossible knot brightens from within, as if someone put a small, stubborn sun inside a closed fist. The chamber speaks again, in the soft, teacher voice a machine uses when it finally believes you can learn. What is the minimum rule that preserves the maximum lives? Not which girl, which boy. Not a romance test, an engineering problem. Consent, I say. Preservation. By consent. The chalk line smokes a little, then goes dark. The rune script on the floor curls like a leaf left on a hot plate. The clean story tries to write itself and runs out of ink. Above, a corridor of light descends through the fleet like a tunnel bored by a patient comet. The council forms ranks around an absence. Nova steps into the absence and refuses to fit it. Jake, who fixes, the chamber whispers inside my bones, bring the human error. I laugh because I'm scared, and because the word feels like a medal when the right person pins it on you. I pick up the cooling script, the almost erasure, the neat escape, and I pocket it like a relic of a god I will not serve. I run. By the time I hit the ridge, the colony looks up like a congregation seeing a miracle it didn't order. The corridor stands from sky to sand, a column that glows the way certainty glows before someone asks a better question. Nova's silhouette descends, as if she's walking down a lighthouse beam. Ground meets star. The wall shudders and opens on its own. No proximity key. The heart's voice threads the wind. Contest accepted. The council's voice comes through every speaker, every pipe. Proceed. Anomaly. Outcome binds. Nova meets me at the threshold, eyes bright as the inside of a forge. Her hands tremble like she's unlearning a weapon. I broke protocol, she says, chest rising like she ran a very long way. If we lose, they pull the world clean. If we win? She looks at my kitchen, at the second cup, at the small messes that mean someone lives here. Her mouth softens, and the seals along her wrist write an unreadable word that feels like home. If we win, she says, we choose. Night returns with a steadiness that feels like a hand on my back. The corridor stands like a lit tree trunk, sap of light moving slow and internal. The colony gathers at the perimeter without trying to. Every radio and kettle and door hinge leans toward us. The council watches through the open sky, all those silver ribs of ship like a cathedral roof we did not ask for. The heart speaks through the sand. It isn't loud. It makes quiet, contagious. State your risk and your rule, it says. I clear my throat. We risk the clean story, I tell it, and the habit that confuses obedience with love. We offer a rule, preservation, by consent. Nova's chin lifts. The sigils along her wrists flare like distant storms seen from a plane. I affirm, she says. No deletion, no forced silences, integration by chosen accord. The council tries to change the question. Of course they do. 100 polite refusals arrive in harmonized tones. Consent lowers stability. Consent undercounts the shy. Consent slows fleets. The heart does not debate. It listens for what isn't allowed to be sung, and then, like patient rock changing underwater, it changes. The wall answers first. Its braided vines part in a slow oval, wider than before. Not a wound, but a mouth breathing. The fence posts around the colony de-energize in linked size. Gate by gate, the warning lights go from red to a color I've never seen on any panel. A low green with yellow in it, tender as new plant. The air changes, as if the day taught itself to inhale without flinching. Text moves across the sky like a weather band. New law, translated. Preservation, by consent. Not deletion, but stitching that asks before it binds. An ask before a weld. The council murmurs 1,000 small legal deaths. Nova steps forward anyway. She looks at me as if the rightness hurts. Outcome binds, the flagship reminds us. Then bind this, she says, and extends her hand. I take it. The corridor collapses with the softness of a tent being folded. Not gone, stored. The fleet dims their ribs, a slow unclenching. On our ground, nothing explodes. Instead, everything that has been listening clears its throat and sings one note exactly together. The desal towers, the fence line, the kettle in my kitchen, the screws we lost that have sat in dust all year. It's not pretty. It's honest. We start taking the fence down that night. Not because we have to, because the wall holds itself open on the rhythm of our shared breath, and the fence feels like a lie we told ourselves too long. Section by section, bolt by bolt. I hand Nova a ratchet. She handles it like a tool, not a badge. When she strips a screw, she swears in a keel word that sounds like a bell falling downstairs. I laugh, and our laughter makes the panels thread a faint gold, as if embarrassed by their happiness. People join. Mara from Block 5 brings a headlamp and a metal pail full of cut fruit from the dome. The kids lug posts like heroes. Even the district bot shows up, projection flickering, trying to decide which form fits a party. It chooses a shy cat. The cat blinks in astonishment as grown adults applaud it for simply existing. Nova works, until sweat zigzags her temples. The sigils along her collarbone dim, content. She pauses sometimes to listen, palm on a panel, reading with her skin the way I read a gauge. The wall listens back. When we stop to drink, the opening holds, as if it has learned patience from us. By dawn, the fence is a neat stack of rails against my module. The desert doesn't feel bigger. It feels closer, the way someone's face feels closer when they finally tell the truth. Life finds a new orbit fast. That's what life does when the rule simplifies. Nova stays as liaison, not as an apology, but as an appointment. The council calls it an interface role. She calls it visiting with responsibility. She spends mornings at the Learning Dome answering questions like, "Are you ticklish?" and "Do your ships have bathrooms?" She doesn't pretend the hard part's away. She tells the teenagers there will be pressures to sell their futures in clean pieces, and she tells them how to say no in languages that aren't hers. Some afternoons she goes to the wall to arbitrate customs, street festivals, waste routing, the grief protocols of two species who were not designed for each other's ghosts. She does it without ordering, which for her is either an art or a wound. I become the node's keeper by accident the first week, and on purpose the second. The heart likes requests it can understand, so I bring it plain ones. Please stabilize the water table under Block 5. Please modulate the tower harmonics so they don't mess with sleep. Please teach me enough to keep from breaking you while I learn. It answers like an old plumber talking me through a valve, slowly, with jokes. Work changes. People stop filing repair tickets like petitions to a bored god. They show up in person with a bag of screws and a canteen and ask, and when I answer, they listen. The node hums when a plan is good. It sulks when someone tries to cheat the new rule. Once, a contractor tries to cut power to a squatter row, and the heart locks their access until they draft a payment plan the families approve. Slow, the admin complains. Alive, the node replies, flickering the lights in a rhythm that means, try again. Between shifts, home is a series of small negotiations that feel like gifts. Nova communicates like a commander. Sometimes she accidentally gives me orders for dinner. I badly want to be the kind of man who doesn't keep score, and on good days, I am. On others, I say, ask me. She hears it. She tries again. Will you make that stew I like? It's a small sentence that shakes a very old pillar and leaves it standing in a better place. We plant a garden in trays on the module roof, tomatoes pretending to be brave in the dry. The kids from the dome install a wind harp on the east corner. The harp refuses to sound cruel, no matter how rough the gusts get. At night, the panel over the sink becomes our lamplight. We eat beside its glow and listen to the hiss for moods, counting the ways a room can say, welcome without words. There are consequences. There always are. A Keel tribunal sends a marriage contract that would yoke Nova to a distant clan to restore rank. The heart refuses to carry the message through the wall without her explicit say-so. When she reads it aloud, her seals ache the color of old bruises. She deletes the file with a gesture that breaks a ritual older than my family name. No one comes to drag her back. They can't. Not and keep the rule. Power looks smaller when consent stands next to it. One day, I wake to a silence so full it makes my eyes sting. I follow it to the ruin where the relief showed us our fork. The stone has changed. The two lines aren't separate anymore. They twine like cords twisted for strength. Under my fingers, the surface is warmer than stone has any right to be. I whisper, thank you to whatever artisan and whatever accident turned future into fabric. By the end of the season, I carry a ring in my pocket and a terror in my chest. The ring is a rolled shard of fence, buffed to a soft shine, the color of apologies kept. The terror is that asking is a risk, and risks are alive. I propose in the kitchen because our kitchen is where we won. The luminous wall makes a dawn that isn't dawn. The kettle breathes its even boil. I wipe my hands on a towel like that will help, and then I say her name the way you say, "A city you're not leaving." "Nova." She turns, hair loose, mouth already tilted into a question like a door cracked open. "I have a request," I say, because that's our grammar now. Not an order, not a purchase, a shared one. I put the ring on the table, visible to the room because rooms remember how you treat them. My voice misbehaves. "Will you consent to build a life with me? With this place? With the way we keep choosing and failing and choosing anyway?" For a heartbeat, the old world flexes. I feel the ghost of the clean story trying to lift. Then Nova steps where that ghost would have stood, and the wall sings one clear, delighted note that makes the kettle hop. She doesn't give a speech. She comes close, folds her forehead to mine, and kisses me with the kind of care that has nothing to prove. When she pulls back, a new sigil soft blooms at the inside of her wrist. Small, precise, a circling braid. Choice, shared. The heart hums like a satisfied machine. Outside, the fleet reduces itself to distant stars, not leaving, just learning to be far. The council will send more letters. We will stack them in a neat pile and address them with the law they helped write. Our ending is not neat. Light flickers when there's a surge. Tomatoes split when you aren't watching. People talk past each other and then apologize with food. But the rule holds. Quiet as breath. Preservation. By consent. When the node trembles, we listen. When the wall worries, we slow. When someone new knocks, we show them how to ask and be answered. Love, I realize, is a technology too. It requires tending. It has maintenance windows and emergency patches and the occasional reboot where you stand on the roof at night, point at a planet and say, "That one, that's ours." We break more fences. We keep the rails. We build a trellis.